All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're launching a full-on forensic investigation into a historical disaster that, believe it or not, perfectly mirrors the biggest issue we're seeing with enterprise AI deployments today. Picture this. It's the morning of February 28, 1995. The Denver International Airport is finally opening its doors to the public. But behind all the smiling faces and the ribbon cutting lay a catastrophic project management failure. And as you'll see, it holds the exact blueprint for why so many AI projects are crashing and burning in the year 2026. Let's dig into the evidence. $560 million. Just let that sink in for a second. That massive figure represents the budget overrun for Denver International's automated baggage system when it finally opened. We aren't talking about a minor rounding error or a slight miscalculation here. We are literally talking about over $500 million down the drain. And you want to know the wildest part? When the airport opened 16 months late, the very system that caused this massive financial crater wasn't even operational. And honestly, it gets worse, way worse. During that agonizing 16-month delay leading up to the opening, the city bled exactly $33 million every single month in bond debt. $33 million a month, just evaporating into thin air, while a bunch of stressed-out engineers scrambled to fix a system that was fundamentally broken right from its inception. The financial bleeding was just absolutely staggering.
Okay, so let's set the scene of this technological crime scene back in the 1990s.
This system was supposed to be an absolute marvel of aviation. They promised it would flawlessly move 1,000 bags per minute across 21 miles of track, sorting luggage to over 100 gates across 3 different concourses. Sounds amazing, right? Well, instead, when it came time for the big public demonstration in September 1993, 4,000 automated telecards just violently destroyed luggage on live television. I mean, they crashed into each other, vehicles literally jumped off their tracks, and there was even an electrical fire in one of the cabinet systems. It was an absolute spectacle of failure. So, how does something go that incredibly wrong? Well, that brings us to the root cause, a fatal commercial promise. You see, to understand why those carts were crashing into each other, we actually have to look away from the engineers and look directly at the executives. Mayor Federico Peña desperately needed United Airlines VP, Pete McDonald, to sign an anchor lease. Without this lease, the airport's bond financing was completely dead in the water. So to secure that signature, the mayor agreed to McDonald's demand for full airport-wide automation. And get this. He did it without ever once consulting the technical feasibility team at BAE Systems. A massive commercial commitment was made that completely ignored technical reality. Just look at this perfectly backward sequence of events. The airport design started in 1988. Then the lease negotiations in 1991 forced this insane technology requirement. And the actual builders, BAE Systems, were brought in mid-construction in 1992. They were essentially handed a contract and asked to deliver an 18-month miracle for a system of unprecedented complexity. The entire project was born out of a boardroom handshake, not a technical assessment. All right, let's unpack the forensic evidence here and see exactly how this fell apart. How did such a massive gap form between what was promised and what was delivered? Well, piece of evidence number 1, the impossible timeline. BA's project manager, Gene DiFonso, explicitly warned city officials in March 1993 that they needed 18 to 24 more months, minimum. But because there was no change control process in place to actually document the trade-off of ignoring technical reality, his timeline was just completely ignored. Mayor Peña never got a formal risk document in time, and this triggered a horrific cascade of missed deadlines, costing the city that $33 million a month in debt service we talked about earlier. Evidence piece number 2 is just staggering scope creep. Originally, the system was designed just for United Airlines at Concourse B, but then the city decided, hey, let's expand it to Concourses A and C for other airlines like Continental. You simply cannot triple the complexity of a highly integrated software network without completely blowing up your schedule. The integration risks, never formally assessed. Which leads us to evidence piece 3, a shocking lack of testing. They ran these huge public demonstrations without ever performing end-to-end integration testing. When you have 4,000 carts sharing a single track, a single software error cascades across the entire system instantly. City officials actually tried to pass off those spectacular TV crashes as mere calibration runs, effectively covering it up until the Wall Street Journal exposed their internal communications in August 1994. Phased load testing was simply never built into the plan.
And the final piece of evidence brings us to the financial aftermath. $1 million. That is what Denver spent every single month for a decade just to maintain a broken system. Remember, the airport ultimately opened using conventional tug and cart baggage handling. But they burned $1 million a month before finally throwing in the towel and scrapping the automated system for the main terminal in May 2005. United spent another $100 million limping along with a modified version until 2013. Now here's the real kicker, and you might find this surprising. Automated baggage systems absolutely work globally. Just look at the left side here. Munich Airport handles over 50,000 bags a day with 99.9% reliability. Amsterdam, Hong Kong, they do it too. This proves the technology itself was never actually the problem. The governance was. The true failure was a weak governance structure that allowed commercial commitments to completely override technical feasibility. Which brings us to the core of this explainer. Let's look at 1995 Denver versus 2026 AI deployments. Because if you think this is just some old story about an airport, think again. Let's do a screen-by-screen breakdown of how these two worlds collide. Look at this side-by-side pattern of failure. On the left, in 1995, a commercial lease is signed before feasibility, with no escalation path for warnings, leading to massive failure. Now, look at the right column for 2026. Executives announce massive AI vendor contracts to the board and deploy the tools, and only then do they try to build the safety and governance structure. They make the commitment completely irreversible first. The result? A staggering 94% of organizations are capturing zero AI value. It's the exact same backwards sequence. So, what does this all mean? The lesson here is always the governance. Whether you're laying 21 miles of physical track for baggage carts or you're deploying a massive large language model across your entire enterprise, the cost of governance arriving late is catastrophic failure. The technology works, but without a formal process to escalate technical reality to executive decision makers, you are just flying blind.
So, how do we actually fix this missing governance?
While today's project leaders actually have a lifeline, we finally have a published framework, the PMI AI standard, which was released on June 9, 2026. This standard acts as the exact escalation path and formal change control process that Mayor Peña and Gene DiFonso desperately needed but never had. It gives organizations a strict, defined process to actually align their commercial ambitions with technical reality. Just look at this very first principle: human-in-the-loop oversight at every stage. This ensures that the technical team can formally assess feasibility, find the gaps, and surface them to decision makers before a single dollar is wasted. It forces the technical assessment to happen before the irreversible commercial commitment is made. It's a real game changer. So, I want to leave you with this final critical thought to investigate within your own teams. What is the formal change control process governing your next AI deployment? Are you building the governance before the contract, or are you just building the next Denver baggage disaster? Look closely at your next AI rollout. Ensure that technical feasibility leads the commercial promise, not the other way around. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.